Okay, welcome everyone so much. That's what I meant to say. Welcome so much. Hey everyone,
Welcome, everyone.
thanks so much for joining us today at Fecking Bahamas. I got two legends here with me. We have the legendary Damon, we have the legendary Kristian Dunn. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm really excited to see you guys together, like I just mentioned, and I'm excited to ask you what I hope is not too inane of a litany of questions, but I do have kind of a list here, and we have some people from the audience that submitted some questions as well. I might try to squeeze some of those in. But yeah, do you guys have any questions? Do you want to say anything before we start or anything like that?
I I think I'm in question fielding mode right about now. So
So let's get into this. I love the
sure.
press release that came from Joyful Noise. Did you guys have any input on that on the press release?
Quite
Yeah,
a bit,
we
I
both
would
got
say.
interviewed,
Okay,
and
yeah, because there's a couple of quotes that I wanted to ask, and sometimes they just like take them and spin them. But that being said, I love that there's the quote attributed, I think it's to Damon, where you guys have been ships in the night for a long time. You guys have been passing, and you'd think most people that hear, okay, Damon Shay and Kristian are going to be collaborating, they must have known each other for years. They must have been hanging out since the old days. Like, I think a lot of people are actually pretty surprised that you guys had never really crossed paths. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe it was just what it was like meeting for in person for the first time?
It was extremely interesting for me because um, I like picked Christian up at the airport in Indianapolis, and my car was still decked out as an Uber driver. So which was really not much different than all the other people I picked up at airports until you get to meet Christian, and then it's like, oh, it's like this is like somebody, this is something else. This person, this isn't just like another passenger here.
yeah, I was supposed to actually get an Uber because I think Damon had just driven out there and was probably ready to chill, but there something was it was like the NBA All-Star game was happening that night or something, and Ubers were incredibly expensive, and there just weren't any, and it was really cold out, and I'm like, is there any way you could just come get me? I'm so sorry we've never met and I'm already asking you a favor, but can you just come get me? And he did. So that's how we met. But we had talked on the phone a lot and obviously emailed and texted a bazillion times before that.
Yeah. So I'm curious actually, I guess kind of before that, do you guys have any memories of becoming aware of each other's projects in the past though? Like, you know, where as Christian and L10, where you're like, oh man, like Don Cab is tearing it up right now. And then conversely, you know, Damon, where you're like, oh, L10 is sick or anything like that.
I don't think Damon had ever even heard of L1011. And I was not a Don Cab fan. I saw them once at South by Southwest. I always thought Damon's drumming was insane, but I wasn't a huge fan. So it's interesting. Maybe better for this project that neither one of us were particularly familiar with the other guy's past.
Interesting.
Easier to start fresh, I think, maybe. I don't know, Damon, would you agree with that?
Well, getting back to his question about the analogy of ships in the night, I mean, it's like when you're when you're involved in music and then you're involved in music for decades on end, you have to ignore a lot of other stuff that exists, or you'd go nuts if you can't pay attention to everything, you can't know everyone, and so you dismiss a lot. And so there are lots of ships in the night that are constantly being dismissed. But then, oops, how did I miss one that good? That was like the surprise. And so that's why I compared us to ships in the night, where it's it's perplexing how we did miss one another, but everything in good time, I suppose, whatever the adage is, you know.
That's awesome. So it was Carl from Joyful Noise that was just like, you guys have to meet, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he was largely responsible for introducing us for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I had been Carl. Well, go ahead, Damon. Sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say after he introduced us, that's when we started to wonder how we had missed each other for so long, I guess.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've for some reason in the past few years I've been extremely prolific writing music, and I had written 25 songs for the next L1011 record. And I actually thought maybe it was going to be 2 records, but my producers convinced me we should pick the top 12 and have that be the next L10 record. But anyway, I was talking to Carl because Carl and I are become good friends. I said, man, I've already overwhelmed my drummer in L10 with this music, but I'm still writing. I wish I had somewhere else to put these songs. He's like, dude, you need another project. I'm like, I know, but every time I try to start one with another musician, they end up ghosting me, which is really frustrating. He's like, well, you know who Damon Shea is, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I don't think he's doing anything right now, and I'm friends with him. And I could introduce you guys. Holy crap, yeah, that'd be great. And less than a year later, we had written and recorded an entire record. It went really fast.
Yeah, and I mean it said in the press release, you guys were in the studio for like did it say like less than 48 hours or something like that?
That was a little more than that. It was
Okay.
5 days, was it, Damon? I can't remember.
Yeah, we got done tracking a heck of a lot faster than I imagined would be possible.
Yeah.
I think we only tracked for like 2 days for the most part, and then there were like
Yeah.
another 3 days of um, mixing and overdubs and things.
Nice. Okay, yeah, I think I'm remembering now the like 2 days just doing the tracking.
Well, it was 5 days because I've never made a record longer than 5 days, and so it fit right into the same template of every freaking thing I've ever done. So that's yeah, it was 5 days.
That's cool, actually. So, I mean, sort of touching on both of your answers, I am curious, like, um, what was it like for you, Damon, to return to that studio environment, or do you find yourself kind of like around studios pretty frequently?
Not super frequently, but I mean, I do session work from time to time, and so it's once you learn how to ride your bicycle, you don't ever need the training wheels again. So some time can pass, but when you return to it, it's like you never left it.
Riding the bike. So there wasn't like any no, at least that stand out to you now. There wasn't like a sharp learning curve. You were just like, no, I have been here before.
The only sharp learning curve for me was I I was sure that the way I do monitoring now is I use earbuds underneath runway muffs, and I was sure there was a chance if I just handed him the other end of that line that it would sound like hell. And so I brought all this other ridiculous, just little toys and gizmos and equalizers and mixers to make sure that I could control my monitor, EQ, but it was completely unnecessary. Tyler had this, just perfect monitor system. All I had to do was just plug my headphones, my earbuds into that, and then it was echelons better than what I had brought myself. So that was the only learning curve for me.
Interesting. That sounds like a good one though. That's like a, at least that's a saving time thing and not like having to learn a new skill thing. That's pretty cool. Let me see. So I have this little piece of paper here with all of my questions on it. Oh yeah. So in the one of the funny parts I thought of the little press release, can you guys explain to me what a text exchange of Van Halen demos means?
We send each
Well,
other lots of different things. That was just, one thing we sent each other.
What does that mean? You sent him a demo of Van Halen?
I sent him a collection of hitherto unreleased Van Halen demos, and he enjoyed them. Or at least he said he enjoyed them. I mean,
You better have enjoyed those.
yeah,
they're amazing.
no, um, they're what they were. But no, we send each other all kinds of different things to check this out,
Yeah.
Cool.
like all buds do. I mean, you send each other stuff.
Did you like those, Christian, or were you just saying
Oh
that?
yeah, it's incredible. In fact, if you can hunt them down, it's pretty mind blowing to listen to because their demos. I mean, it sounds like the first record, except just more raw. Makes you realize how legitimately talented they were. It wasn't just production tricks or anything like that. It's like there was a lot there. There was even just the raw. I think it was the raw drum tracks in the room and maybe a mic in the room that they had captured somehow, and they're just playing the stuff live and it sounds like the record, but more, I mean, it's just, god damn, it's so good.
That's cool. That's a weird black magic that seems to happen with demos a lot, especially like maybe even I guess it's just kind of increasing how overanalyzed production is and like loudness wars and mastering and all that. It's interesting to see how that's progressed, but also bands today that are recording in whatever way are like our demos sound better than our records. And I don't know. Have you guys had a lot of experiences with like, in your records trying to match the intensity or like the emotion on a demo?
I definitely get the itis, demo itis, when working on L10 records in particular. And it's really hard for me to get out of that. It's not that the production is better, but there's something special and vibey about some of the demos. And then when we actually really record it, I'm like, God, that specialness is gone. And then inevitably my producer's like, trust me, this is better. And then
Yeah.
inevitably, you know, 3 years later, I'll accidentally hear the old demo and be like, oh, that sounds like crap. Why did I think that was so special? But with Yesness, I have a little bit of that. Like I'll send our formula, since we live in different cities, is I'll write a song and I'll do it just with fake drums from Logic or something. I always tell Damon, this is just a fancy metronome. You do whatever you want on here or whatever. But occasionally, I mean, not very often, occasionally he'll send drums where I'm like, maybe could be more like the demo. But that's really, really rare. I mean, that happens 1 in 20 times or something. Usually what he sends me is like, holy crap, you just made this song better. In fact, there's one of the songs on the record. Now I'm going blank on which one it is. I think it might be See Through Wolf Costume. I was about to throw that one away, and I sent it to Damon. And I think I said something along the lines of, this is about to go in the trash, but I don't know, see what you think. And the drums he put on it were so freaking cool that he saved it, you know. So that's what you get when you have Damon as your drummer.
Man, pretty cool. Um, so going to a little more, let's speak a little bit more about the album itself. I really love the title and the idea of solipsism. The I am curious how like not only how you guys maybe came up with that, but also if like that is a self-reflection in the see you at the solipsist convention is like you and me, we are our own thing with everyone else doing their own thing. Is it? I'm just kind of curious about how you guys thought up that title.
I got the idea for the title from I want to try to make this a condensed, easy to tell story, but I'm gonna mumble around a little bit to try to remember it. I was listening to a podcast, and I'm pretty sure it was Richard Dawkins was being interviewed, and he related a story where he had said he had, in some other interview, he had said, you know, sometimes I just feel like a solipsist. And then a month later or something, he was at some scientific convention and some woman came up to him and said, it's great to meet another solipsist, which is really funny.
That is funny.
So, then the idea of, you know, see you at the solipsist convention or just a solipsist convention is hilarious. So that was just, Damon and I have this huge list of funny and intriguing song titles, potential song titles, album titles, and that was one of them.
I wasn't even aware there was that much of a backstory to it. I thought you were just being a humorous jackass, and I thought it was funny, and so I was like, yeah, I'm in.
Cool.
It's kind of a perfect title. It is intriguing. It's funny. The more you think about it, you're like, that doesn't work. But it also has. I think it's funny that it's sort of. I don't mean this in a like a negative approach way, but it's funny that I think people think of both of you as fairly independent thinkers, and the fact that you guys kind of get to fire off in parallel on this album too, like you can hear both of you so clearly. You don't necessarily get the impression that you're separate, like it's like a disjointed thing, but you're like these are two different visions that are completely cohesive and parallel. And I feel like that's pretty consistent in both of your discographies too. Like the music the melodies and the rhythms of those melodies, will be highly influenced, of course, by the drums. But you guys just seem to have like independent thinking when it comes to composition, and I think that applies to the record's title, or the other way around. The title seems to apply to that.
That's a way better explanation of the title. We should just use that from now on.
You get both. So let me see what I got here. Was it in speaking in that, I guess in that way, was it important in any moment for like either of you to maybe change something or not do something for reminiscence of your other projects? Like, yeah, I don't want to do this because it reminds me of Don Cab or L10.
I do hear Kristian say that from time to time. There, every once in a while, something gets dismissed because it's too L10.
It's okay. You still do L10.
I mean, like once again, not maybe like 1 in 20 times, if that even.
It's
Yeah,
just
it definitely wasn't at the forefront of my thinking when writing. One thing, well, I've been doing this in L10 the last few records as well, but writing these songs, not worrying about how we're going to do them live, like 5 different parts will all come in at once, whereas live, it's just me and Damon. So, and there's no pre-recorded tracks or anything, so I have to do things one at a time. Is making, now that we're coming up with a set that we're going to play live, I have to figure out how to play these songs, or at least some of them live, which is really hard. So that's different from yeah, it's different from L10 from 20, oh gosh, I don't know, 2017 and early. The first few L10 11 records, what you hear on the record is pretty much what we would do live, maybe edited a little bit. Then as we went on, I was worrying about that less and less. And then with Yesness, I just wasn't worrying about it at all. Maybe I should have been, but
I don't know. I mean, live stuff these days is so I don't know. There are many solutions to problems, more so than there have been, and honestly, better sounding, more practical solutions than there have been. But it does require learning. Like I hate, probably my least favorite part of being in a band for a while was the audio visual aspect, where we were doing like projections and like people were doing oil paintings and stuff on the screens during our sets, and god damn, that was like the most. I couldn't stand what was going on because the setup was so long. And like nowadays, I know there are ways to cut what we were doing down. Like even just 5 years ago, we could do what we were doing in an hour in like 20 minutes, and it would like be better results. So it's a timing thing, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting to see how that would work. I'm excited to see that. I'm hoping that if I budget things correctly, I can either see you guys in like Salt Lake, or I know you guys don't have a Vegas date, but I'm in Utah right now, so possibly Salt Lake. I'd love to come check you guys out. And I won't tell anyone that you haven't figured out how to trigger all those things at one time yet.
well, I won't. I'll never trigger. I'll always play everything, but I just have to do it in a way that's interesting, because I'm like, all right, I got a bass line, I got chords, I've got a melody, and I've got a harmony. Well, which one do I do first?
Dang. I think I remember seeing Dave Knudsen from Minus the Bear doing a lot of that stuff live too, because so much of their stuff relies on a DL6 and like a sped up sample of something that's not programmed, it's not stored. He has to play that at like minimal volume, turn up the loop, speed it up, and then that's the intro. But it took him like 15 seconds to set up the intro.
Right.
And I thought that was fascinating. So it's like its own, I think as far as instrumental bands go, that's almost like I don't want to say that's very math rock, but that's very, very much a niche right now of people like getting really good at tap dancing and setting up the stage in like a natural way. It's really cool to see that.
Nice.
So next, this sort of applies to both of you. I think you guys have been doing something. You guys have been playing with song titles as far as I can tell, like your whole discography. Do you consider song titles to be like its own art, its own like language? Because sometimes it's like, a non sequitur. Sometimes you're like, that is a heavy statement. Sometimes it's like, I have no clue what that means. That's a made up word or something like that. or maybe it's a model of a helicopter that no one's ever heard of. You know, like they're out there.
You want to take that one, Damon?
The first thought that comes to mind is you have way more wiggle room for naming a composition when you're not dealing with lyrics and a front person that perhaps maybe only sings vocals and doesn't play any instrument. You take all those things out of the picture, there's just way more freedom to really get elastic with the title of a composition. And so we do, I think, because we on some level we have to entertain ourselves as well, I would argue. Because I mean, I like having a record that when you forget some of the titles and you look at them and they still crack you up, you know, when you'd forgotten about them, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so to some extent we're entertaining ourselves with the titles, I think, too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that in L10, every record really had some sort of a theme, and the titles were reflective of that theme. But with this one, with Damon, I was just trying to write cool music. I wasn't thinking that these songs are about anything in particular, so that totally opened the door to just what title seems like it's appropriate and also entertains us, just like you said.
I do feel that. Like, I'm really glad you said that, because when I was listening to the record last night, I was like, I love how familiar the elements of this record feel. Like like David, it's the second I heard the snare tone, I was like, that is absolutely Damon Shea. There's no thinking about it. And then like as soon as like the second or third melodic layer kicked in, I was like, yeah, that's absolutely like a Kristian thing. And but I still didn't feel, even though I kind of asked about it earlier, I'd never felt like it was leaning into one project's history. I was like, this is sort of it's not free jazz, but it does sound like a freeing moment. Would you guys agree that it was like at least a freeing experience recording and writing the album?
I never thought of that word, but yeah, that fits. I mean, I think it's inevitable that Don Cab fans are going to be disappointed that that doesn't sound more like Don Cab, and L10 fans are probably going to be disappointed it doesn't sound more like L10. But I think I speak for Damon in saying we didn't want this to sound like either one of those bands. We want it to be its own thing. Uh,
I'm just wondering how many mutual L10 Don Cab fans exist in the world, whether we had done this project or not, and would they be open-minded enough to like it not sounding like either previous project, even if we just spin the wheel, and like I hypothetically ask them, what would you think of a project that was a member of Don Cab and a member of L1011, but the result wasn't like either of those bands? How many of them would already be nodding their head in anticipation, I guess is, are there any are there any music fans out there like that even?
There are a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say there are some Facebook groups you can check out. But also, I wouldn't want to drag you through that. But yeah, there's absolutely an audience. I think a lot of people are already freaking out. Which was exciting for me to see, like, because I didn't necessarily have that question in mind, but I was curious about the same thing. As soon as I got the email and as soon as I saw the stuff that was happening, I was like, I'm really curious for a number of reasons. And I didn't even predict that it would lean into either sound. I was just like, I want to hear what these minds create together. Even it was a one for one, you guys were just covering stuff, I would be like, I want to hear them do that. And I think a lot of people do feel that way. Again, not to be like super kiss ass, but yeah, that's quantifiably out there if you're ever wondering. Let me see what else we got. So I only got a couple left, and maybe we can fire off like one or two from the audience. Actually, let's get one from the audience right now. What do you guys think of this? Is a sandwich a hot dog, or is a hot dog a sandwich?
I heard that somewhere before recently.
Someone asked it today, and I was just like,
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I have an answer. If your sandwich is a pain in the ass to eat, it is a hot dog. Like, I've been making my own meatball subs lately, but the meatballs I use are like the real small kind. And so you have to use like about 9 or 10 of those instead of 3 normal big size meatballs like a real meatball sub would have. And so it gets really cumbersome. They start to squish different directions and it gets messy, and it's a pain in the ass to eat. So really, to answer your question, I'm not having a meatball sub. I'm having a meatball hot dog. So
Fantastic. That's the best
clear
answer
some
I
things
could have
up.
ever imagined someone giving. Thank you for that. Um, Switch back to the script for a second here. I am curious if you guys juggle motivation versus productivity. I know a lot of people these days have a lot on their minds, especially creative people, and it can be really difficult to be like, I'm gonna create today, or I'm even gonna touch my instrument today. Like, how do you guys, or do you guys even really think about the balancing act? Do you just commit to creativity either way, or do you find yourself struggling with productivity? I know that Kristian, you said you wrote like 25 songs after writing a triple album and then another album. Like, what's wrong with you? But
Yeah.
yeah, is it hard to juggle the motivation and the productivity?
Not for me. I don't know. How is it for you, Damon?
Yeah, Kristian's a pretty busy beaver. I might be on a different sprocket setting, maybe. Um, a different, like either lower gear or higher gear, whichever one would be the bigger or the smaller sprocket. Um,
The wet sprocket.
yeah, I I I try to pace myself to just get my best work, my best stuff into the mixing bowl, and but then sometimes I play if if I'm really, when I get into the groove, I'll play a song more times than I should have, and I'll realize I'm getting too tired to make a good demo of it, and so sometimes that'll happen, but I also have to to pace myself around the noise in my actual ears, just things like that, but I try to find the combination that's going to get my best stuff, into fruition, into production.
There's no more like hot dog type questions.
There could be. Let me take a look here. We answered a
What's the
couple.
most painful joy buzzer handshake you ever received? What's the lousiest tasting stink gum you ever bit into?
Ooh.
The green one, the Wrigley one.
I'm just trying to think of things in the old 1960s ads that had the in the back of comic books, the products you could buy for $1 or whatever.